My name is Diana Archer. I'm 27 years old. And last Friday night, my parents invited me home for dinner, then locked the door, sat me down in front of a marriage contract with a man I'd never met, and told me, "This is happening tonight." There was an officiant standing quietly in the corner of the living room, holding a leather folder like this was normal. My father stood in front of the only exit, arms crossed, back flat against the door. My mother looked at me the way you look at a problem you've already solved.
Calm. Certain.
Finished. And the worst part? She was right. Everything had already been decided, just not the way she thought. Before I go on, if this story hits something real for you, go ahead and like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely want to. And if you're listening right now, drop a comment telling me where you are and what time it is. I'm always curious who's awake with me. Now, let me take you back 2 weeks before the dinner, before the contract, back to the phone call that started everything. But first, you should know who I am, or who I was. I live alone in a one-bedroom apartment about 20 minutes outside Grayfield, Georgia. I work as an administrative assistant at a veterinary clinic. I pay my rent on time. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't stay out late unless I'm binge-watching something on the couch with my cat. By every measure that matters to me, my life is quiet and fine. But to my mother, Lorraine Archer, quiet and fine is just another word for failure. She calls at least 3 times a week. Not to ask how I'm doing, to check. Where was I Saturday?
Who was I with?
Why haven't I put myself out there? And always, you're 27 and still alone, Diana. Do you know what people say about that? Eventually, I stopped answering. That only made it worse. Last Thanksgiving, she guilt-tripped me for 3 days straight until I drove the 45 minutes home. I walked through the front door with a pie in my hands, and before I could even set it down, she turned to my uncle's wife and said, "This is Diana, still single, still working at that little dog clinic." She laughed like it was a joke everyone already understood. My father, Gerald Archer, sat at the head of the table and said nothing. He never does. He just nodded, slow, heavy, like he agreed with every word but couldn't be bothered to say them himself. And his silence has always been louder than her voice. I was 24 the first time I thought it. Maybe loving your parents doesn't mean surviving everything they do to you. That year, I started keeping a notebook. I didn't know why yet. 2 Thursdays ago, I was restocking the supply cabinet at the clinic when my phone buzzed. Aunt Denise. She never calls during work hours. I stepped outside, leaned against the brick wall by the dumpsters, and answered. "Diana," she said. Her voice was shaking, not dramatic, just tightly held together. "I need you to listen to me and not say anything until I'm done." I stayed quiet. "Your mother called me this afternoon. She was excited, bragging really. She said tomorrow night they're having a dinner at the house. She said they're finally taking care of the Diana situation." My stomach dropped. "There's a man. His name is Wade Prescott. He's 38. There's an officiant coming. And there's a contract." I said her name 3 times before I believed her.
Denise. Denise.
"Denise, what do you mean a contract?" "A marriage contract, baby. Pre-signed by your mother and father. She told me Wade's family owns land out past Route 12, and your daddy owes them money." Denise paused. She wanted me there to witness you finally doing the right thing. I sat in my car for a long time after we hung up, hands shaking on the steering wheel. Not from fear, from something clicking into place. All those years of guilt. The control. The silence. It finally had a shape. Before Denise hung up, she said one more thing. Quiet, steady, like she'd been saving it. "You don't owe them your life, Diana." I had 24 hours. And for the first time, I wasn't going to be good. On the drive home, I ran every scenario. If I don't show up, my mother calls every relative within 50 miles and tells them I abandoned the family. If I show up and refuse, my father blocks the door because he's done it before. And if I say yes, I lose everything I've built. That's when I remembered the notebook. 3 years of entries.
Dates. Times.
Exact words. Every call where my mother told me I was embarrassing the family. Every text from my father that was just a single period, his way of saying I'd disappointed him without spelling it out. I didn't keep it because I wanted revenge. I kept it because I thought I was losing my mind. I pulled it from my nightstand drawer. Navy blue, dog-eared corners, over 200 entries. And that's when I realized I hadn't been documenting the past. I'd been preparing for this moment. I called Megan Torres at 11 that night. She's a paralegal now at the county attorney's office. After I told her everything, she said the words that changed my life. "This isn't family drama, Diana. This is coercive control. And Georgia law has a process for this." Friday morning, I took a personal day. By 10:15 a.m., a judge had signed an emergency protective order. By 11 o'clock, it was active. By 6:45 that evening, I was pulling up outside my parents' house. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't scared to walk inside. Not at all. "Tonight is the first time I've ever heard about this marriage," I said calmly. "The first time I've met Mr. Prescott. And the first time I've seen this contract." I held it up so the man in the corner could see it clearly. My name was filled in without my knowledge. The room went quiet. Not the comfortable kind. The kind where everyone starts calculating their next move. The officiant, whose name I'd later learn was Dale Kenner, 62, licensed through the county, looked directly at my mother. The polite smile he'd been wearing was gone. "Mrs. Archer," he said slowly, "you told me both parties had consented." "She's nervous," my mother replied quickly. "Pre-wedding jitters. You know how young women are." "I'm not nervous," I said. "I'm stating facts." Kenner looked at the contract, then at the door where my father stood, then back at me. I leaned forward just enough. "You understand that under Georgia law, a marriage ceremony performed without voluntary consent from both adult parties is void, and the officiant who performs it can face criminal liability." I watched the color drain from his face one shade at a time. My mother laughed. "Diana, stop with the dramatics." But Kenner wasn't laughing. He shifted in his seat, then started to stand. Something changed in the room. I could feel it like a current reversing direction. My mother's hand shot out. "Sit down." Her voice dropped all sweetness like a mask hitting the floor. She turned to me, and for the first time that night, I saw the real Lorraine Archer. Not the crying mother. Not the gracious hostess. The controller. "Diana Marie Archer," she said flatly, "I am not asking your opinion. I am telling you what's going to happen." From the door, my father finally spoke. 2 words. Heavy as concrete. "Listen to your mother." Mom turned back to Kenner. "You do your job. I already paid you." Kenner stayed half standing, frozen. Wade Prescott shifted on the couch. The polite veneer cracked. "I didn't drive 40 minutes for a debate," he said. "Are we doing this or not?" I looked directly at him. "Are you asking me or them?" Silence. "Because from where I'm sitting, you're negotiating with my parents. Not with me." He looked at my father. I felt my purse against my hip. Inside it, folded, sealed, was something none of them knew about. Not yet. The microwave clock read 7:30, 2 p.m. Mom stepped closer, lowering her voice like she was sharing a secret. 3 years on your own," she said, eyes hard. "And what do you have to show for it? A cheap apartment and somebody else's dogs." She said it like a verdict. My phone buzzed in my purse. Once. Then again. I didn't look. I already knew. She kept talking about Wade's family, their land, their standing. I heard every third word. The rest was static. "You have 2 choices," she said finally. "You sign this contract, or you never call me Mom again." And something strange happened. I felt lighter. She'd unlocked a door she meant to seal forever. I slid my phone just enough to see the screen. Megan *** confirmed with dispatch. "Send the word anytime." I typed 1 word without looking. Now, then I smiled. Not the small placating smile I'd been trained to give. Not the nervous one. A real one.
Calm. Certain.
"What's funny?" my mother snapped. "Nothing," I said. "Not a single thing." I lifted the contract again. Since we're all here, I said evenly, let's talk about what's actually in this. Page 2. My savings account balance, listed to the dollar. I've never shared that number with anyone in this room. Silence. Page 4. Marital residence, Prescott property only. No alternatives. Page 5. I read it aloud. The bride agrees to relinquish independent employment within 60 days of marriage. I set the page down. You want me to quit my job? Wade's family doesn't need you working, Mom said. No, I replied. You want to cut off my income, so I can't leave. I turned to Kenner. His folder was closed now. His hands folded over it. Then I looked at Wade. Did you write this? Or did my mother? The terms are standard, he said tightly. Standard for what? No answer. I turned to my mother. You listed my money. You chose my home. You signed this before I even knew it existed. I placed the contract flat on the table. This isn't a marriage. It's a sale. I turned to my father. How much do you owe the Prescotts? That's none of your business. It is because I'm the payment. The room froze. Mom slammed her hand on the table. Don't you dare accuse your father. $40,000, I said evenly. A land loan, due last spring. My father's arms dropped. For the first time all night, Kenner stood fully now. I need to reassess this situation. Sit down, my mother screamed. I will not proceed, Kenner said. This is not voluntary. He moved toward the door. My father blocked it, out of habit more than intention. Nobody's leaving yet, he said quietly. And I watched realization hit Kenner's face. He was trapped too. Then, headlights swept across the curtains. 7:48 p.m. I stood. Dad, I said calmly, do you know what it's called when you physically prevent adults from leaving? No answer. Unlawful restraint. The siren outside grew louder. I smiled.
Mom.
Dad. You really should have read what I filed yesterday. 3 seconds of silence. Then I pulled 2 envelopes from my purse and placed them on the table. Emergency protective order. Effective immediately. And a formal adult protective services complaint. Phones buzzed. Court notifications. Then the siren stopped right outside. My mother started screaming. And that's when the knock came at the door. This isn't over, Diana. I'll get a lawyer. Before my mother could say anything else, Officer Holland stepped back into the room. Ma'am, she said calmly, I'd strongly recommend that you do get an attorney for yourself. My mother looked at Officer Holland, then at me, then at the empty chair where Wade Prescott had been sitting just minutes earlier. Adult Protective Services will be contacting both of you within 5 business days, Holland added, writing on her notepad. The investigation is already open. My mother opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time in my life, Lorraine Archer didn't have a line prepared. The silence that followed was the loudest sound I had ever heard in that house. Wade Prescott was released after giving his statement. The officers told him the same thing they told my parents. He might receive a subpoena if the investigation continued. He didn't respond, didn't look at anyone. He walked straight to his black truck, started the engine, threw it into reverse, and backed down the driveway with the precision of a man who wanted to erase every second he'd spent on Buckner Road. I stood on the porch and watched his taillights shrink until they disappeared past the curve near the old grain silo. That man had driven 40 minutes to this house, sat on that couch for over an hour, looked me in the eye and said, I think you'll find the terms very reasonable. He knew I had never seen him before. He knew I hadn't consented, and he stayed anyway. That night, he went home with nothing. Not the wife he'd arranged to collect. Not the $40,000 in leverage over my father. Not even his dignity. Because the moment the blue lights hit the driveway, he threw Gerald under the bus without hesitation. The officiant, Kenner, had already left. Now the only people remaining were my parents, 2 officers, and me. Officer Holland walked over. Miss Archer, you're free to go whenever you're ready. The order is in effect. If either parent contacts you or comes within 500 feet, call dispatch immediately. I thanked her, shook her hand, One of the officers, the younger one, murmured something to his partner as they headed back to the patrol car. I caught it just barely. First time I've seen anything like this in Grayfield. I picked up my purse from the dining table, walked past the white tablecloth, the melted candles, the empty chairs. $40,000. That was the number my parents put on my life. I walked out the front door on my own terms. The drive home took 45 minutes. I didn't turn on the radio, didn't call Megan, didn't call Denise. I just drove, both hands on the wheel. Headlights cutting through the dark stretch of Route 9 where the streetlights give out, and it's just you and the pines. My hands were shaking. They hadn't shaken all night. Not when Dad blocked the door. Not when Mom cried. Not when I pulled out the envelopes. But now, alone, with no one to perform calm for, my body caught up. I thought about my mother. Not the woman who set a trap for me that night. The other one. The one who braided my hair so tight it lasted 3 days. Who made mac and cheese from scratch when I had the flu. Who kept every single one of my report cards in a shoebox on the top shelf of her closet. Then I thought about that same woman signing a contract with my name on it. Listing my bank balance. Hiring an officiant. Choosing a stranger. Blocking the door. Both of those women are my mother. That's the part no one tells you. The people who hurt you the worst aren't strangers. They're the ones who know exactly where you're soft, because they made you that way. I pulled into my parking spot at 9:20 p.m., turned off the engine, sat in the dark for a while, listening to the tick of cooling metal and the distant bark of someone's dog. Then I went inside, locked the door, slid down the kitchen wall, and cried.
Hard, ugly, loud.
The kind of crying you can only do when no one is watching and you don't have to be strong anymore. Megan called at 11. You okay? I don't know, I said, but I'm safe. I fell asleep on the kitchen floor. When I woke up Saturday morning, my phone showed 23 missed calls. 11 from Mom. From Dad, no voicemails. Classic Gerald.
Call.
Hang up.
Repeat.
3 from relatives I barely speak to, fishing for details. 2 from Aunt Denise. I called her back first. You okay, baby? She asked.
Tired, I said.
But okay. She exhaled. It's everywhere. By noon, every woman in Grayfield who owns a pair of sneakers knew there was a police car in your mama's driveway. 1 missed call from Wade Prescott's number. No voicemail. Then the number was blocked. 2 more calls from numbers I didn't recognize. I returned none of them. Then a text came in from Mom.
Long.
The kind she writes like a legal brief. I read the first line. You have destroyed your father and me. I cannot show my face. I hope you're satisfied. I screenshot it, added it to the evidence folder, filed it the way Megan taught me. Date, time, content summary. 3 years of practice made it automatic. The call from Adult Protective Services came the following Wednesday. A caseworker named Sandra Whitfield. Professional.
Warm.
Thorough. She told me they'd opened a formal investigation based on my complaint and documentation. Your file is one of the most detailed we've received, she said. The timeline, screenshots, corroborating statements, it all helps. She asked for the original notebook. I told her I'd already submitted 42 photocopied pages, but I could bring the original. That would be ideal. Interviews would follow. My parents would be contacted by mail. What if they don't cooperate? I asked. Non-cooperation is noted, she said. It doesn't stop the investigation. That same day, Megan sent an update. Gerald's unlawful restraint citation had been processed. A misdemeanor. No jail time, but permanently on record. Kenner, the officiant, had submitted a written statement voluntarily. He detailed the emails. The payment. The moment he realized I hadn't consented. He was cooperating fully. According to Denise, Wade told his father the deal was off. No explanation. No argument. The debt remained, but I was no longer the currency. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived from my parents' attorney requesting the protective order be vacated. Megan laughed when she read it. This is harassment, she said. And it just added another exhibit. 3 days later, my mother called my workplace. Told my manager I was emotionally unstable. Dr. Marsh shut it down immediately. She's one of my most reliable staff, she told me. If your mother calls again, I'll document it as workplace harassment. I don't think she knew how much that meant. Lorraine Archer was running out of levers. The walking group stopped inviting her. People stayed polite, but distant. Grayfield is small like that. Then Gerald called. One short call. I didn't know it would go this far, he said. But you still blocked the door, Dad. Silence.
Click.
Megan said it best later that night. He's not sorry for what he did. He's sorry it didn't work. I renewed the protective order for 6 months. Then I wrote them an email. Short.
Clear.
No anger. 3 conditions. Counseling. Acknowledgement. Respect for boundaries. Mom replied with 4 pages of blame. She never once said, I'm sorry. Dad didn't reply at all. I archived the email. A boundary isn't a wall. It's a door with a lock, and the key is in their hands. So far, they haven't reached for it. Now, every Sunday morning, Aunt Denise and I meet at a diner halfway between our towns. Cracked vinyl booths. Coffee too strong. Pancakes the size of your head. She orders my coffee before I sit down. Black. 1 sugar. Last week she told me about her own marriage. The control. The silence. I stayed 15 years too long, she said. I held her hand. You are the first person who ever told me I was allowed to say no, I said. She smiled. Took me 15 years to learn it myself. I'm not telling you this story for sympathy. I'm telling it because setting a boundary is not betrayal. Protecting yourself is not cruelty. And keeping records is not paranoia. It's preparation. My parents aren't monsters. They're people who grew up believing control meant love. I can understand that and still say it was wrong. Both things can be true. My name is Diana Archer. I'm 27 years old. And on a Friday night in October, I walked out of my parents' house. Not because I was told to leave, but because I chose to go. That's the difference. That's everything. Thank you for staying with me until the end.